An ordinary civil servant sits down for his morning meditation, as he had done every single day, without fail, for the last 17 years. Nothing new, same time, same place, the same silent and seemingly harmless technique. A ritual so familiar it had already faded into the background of his existence. But what he didn't know was that, in the minutes to come, something absolutely unpredictable was about to happen. Something that would not only change his life, but completely obliterate the very idea he had of himself. His name was Gopi Krishna. He lived a quiet, predictable life, repetitive work, 3 children, a wife who depended on him emotionally and financially. An ordinary man, the kind of person you pass on the street without leaving a trace in your memory. But on that particular morning, as he focused on the crown of his head, the same point he had used for years without any change, something broke open. First, a sharp sound, like the dry snap of a nerve giving way. Then a roar, loud, intense, like the thunder of a waterfall crashing inside his spine. And then the light, a liquid, vibrant light that spiraled up through his spine and exploded like lightning inside his brain. He described it this way: I was no longer a small point of consciousness confined within a body, but a vast circle of awareness, all-encompassing and unlimited. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Almost poetic. But here's what no one tells you about an unsolicited awakening. The light goes out, and what follows is a kind of darkness no one is prepared for. When he returned to ordinary consciousness, something had shifted, something deep, something irreversible. The man who once was a devoted father, a loving husband, simply didn't feel anything anymore. No emotion for his wife, no love for his children. Food, once a source of pleasure, became repulsive. Sleep, once a place of restoration, became impossible. And his body felt like molten metal was flowing through his veins. Every nerve was on fire. For 12 years, Gopi Krishna lived in a state that can only be described as conscious hell, a purgatory in life, a limbo between the divine and the unbearable. And before you think this is just exaggeration, consider an old Chinese story. A young student once approached a master potter full of impatience and desire. He begged to be taught the advanced secrets, the hidden techniques, the mysterious methods that would make him a great master overnight. The potter simply handed him a block of clay and said, "Spend a year learning how this clay feels in your hands. Understand its nature, its possibilities, its resistance. Then we'll talk about making pots." Frustrated, the student left. He found another master who promised to teach him the advanced techniques immediately. Within a week, he was already trying to shape complex vases and daring sculptures. But everything he made collapsed. The forms would not hold. The beauty would not emerge. His hands had never truly understood the essence of clay. Meanwhile, the first student spent the entire year just touching the earth. He learned its moods, its needs, its responses. When he finally began to mold vases, they were simple but perfect, so solid at the base that the advanced techniques flowed naturally as an extension of his intimacy with the material. He had earned the right to work with clay at deeper levels. And now, understand this, your consciousness is infinitely more delicate than any clay. Yet modern spirituality insists on throwing people straight into advanced practices without a foundation, without understanding the most essential thing, the subtle nature of their own awareness. And the result, more often than not, is not awakening, it's rupture. They want to touch the sky, but they don't want to plant their feet on the ground. They chase mystical experiences like consumers chasing products. They want to open the third eye with a snap of their fingers, awaken the kundalini as if pressing a button. But wait, Am I contradicting myself? On one hand, I say consciousness is already perfect. On the other hand, I insist it must be prepared. Which one is the truth? Both. And, paradoxically, neither. This is the point where most people get lost, because the essence of being, the divine spark that lives within you, that is already light. There's nothing to improve. But the vessel, oh, the vessel, your body, your mind, your nervous system, your emotions, those are what need to be strengthened. Not to deserve the divine, but to withstand it, to keep from being torn apart by what in essence is pure love, but love at the highest voltage. Picture the ocean, vast, full, perfect. Now try bringing that ocean into your house. If your pipes aren't ready, they'll explode. And this is where the danger of the modern spiritual marketplace lies. They promise infinity in a single weekend. They swear they can awaken your kundalini with just one touch, selling the sacred as if it were packaged self-help. They've turned ancient technologies into fast consumption manuals. Practices that even for seasoned masters carried real risks are now taught as if they were motivational magic tricks. But in authentic traditions, it was different. There was respect. There was a path. In Tibetan Buddhism, for instance, a student would spend years, sometimes decades, just on preliminary practices. 9 full stages of preparation before even hearing a whisper of esoteric teaching. There was purification of the body, training of the mind, a deep understanding of philosophy. The secret teachings were kept secret for a very clear reason. They could shatter an unprepared mind. Today, though, all it takes is an online course, just one weekend. And suddenly, you're certified to teach others how to awaken Kundalini. No preparation, no evaluation, no guidance. It's like handing explosives to a child and calling it spiritual education. And do you know what hurts the most? It's not just the irresponsibility, it's the cynicism. Because when the inevitable happens, when a student has a psychic breakdown, a nervous collapse or dissociation, guess who gets blamed? The student. They say he didn't have enough faith, that it was just the ego resisting, that he wasn't aligned. This isn't just dishonest, it's spiritual abuse. It's gaslighting disguised as wisdom. But the body knows. The psyche has its own intelligence. And the soul awakens at the right time, not before, not after. You don't force a flower to bloom. There are natural mechanisms that protect us, and they're not there by accident. These systems, invisible yet incredibly precise, regulate the flow of consciousness like a dam holding back a flood from destroying a city. They serve a sacred purpose, to prevent the human system from collapsing under forces it cannot yet sustain. Forcing that passage is committing a kind of spiritual violence. But maybe you're wondering, what about the people who do have profound, transformative, mystical experiences? What about those who truly benefit from intense practices? Yes, they exist. Some walk through the gates and return with blessings. But we don't evaluate medical treatments only by looking at those who survived them. Serious medicine considers the entire spectrum of effects, especially the collateral ones, the harmful, the dangerous. If even the pharmaceutical industry is required to list every possible risk, no matter how small, why don't we demand the same level of rigor from spiritual teachers? The truth is that poorly guided meditation can lead to dissociation. Deep, energetic practices can throw the nervous system into chaos. Intensive retreats without proper guidance can trigger what many call a spiritual emergency. And no, these are not rare cases or statistical exceptions. They are predictable consequences of an unprepared search. But here's the paradox few dare to admit. Very often, the most dangerous guides are not the ones who seem obscure or eccentric. They are precisely the ones who radiate power, the ones who speak with unshakable conviction, the ones who appear to have all the answers, and who don't hesitate to push their students beyond their own limits. They confuse intensity with truth. They confuse emotional collapse with awakening. They confuse destabilization with transformation. So how do you walk the spiritual path with safety and wisdom? Think of learning to drive. You don't start out at high speed on the freeway. You start in a safe place, with patience. In the same way, self-knowledge should begin with the simple. First, learn to observe your daily emotions, to understand your triggers, to breathe through anger, to find silence in the face of fear. Only then will you be ready to touch the more subtle veils of reality. Seek teachers who don't feed your spiritual ego, but who ask you, "Are you ready? How is your emotional stability? Do you have the foundation to sustain what you're seeking?" Teachers with not only spiritual formation, but also psychological and ethical grounding. Ones who are prepared to handle crises, shadows, and limits. And above all, who care more about your safety than their own public image. The most important criterion? Discernment. Spiritual growth is not about becoming someone who accepts everything without question. On the contrary, true awakening sharpens critical thinking. It doesn't erase your questions, it deepens them. If a teacher discourages doubts or claims that questioning is a lack of faith, that's a red flag. True spiritual authority welcomes sincere doubt. It doesn't fear questions, it thrives in them. And remember this, your goal should not be to collect mystical experiences just to feel special. The true purpose is to become someone able to sustain, with balance, grace, and humility, any experience that consciousness presents. And that takes time. It takes preparation, presence, patience, just as the ocean doesn't rush to the shore in fury. It comes in waves, one by one, respecting the time of the land to receive it. The true spiritual path is like that, firm yet gentle. Deep yet careful, transformative yet grounded. You don't need to rush, you need to be ready. When the tide rises too quickly, it doesn't nourish, it devastates. The same is true for spiritual awakening. As tempting as the call for expansion may be, there is a natural rhythm that must be respected. Ignoring it is like trying to force a flower to bloom before it's ready. Gopi Krishna lived this in his own body. His awakening was intense, abrupt, and nearly fatal. But after 12 long years of deep integration, he not only found balance, he became one of the greatest researchers of consciousness and a courageous voice who broke the silence about the dangers of premature awakening. The true gift he left humanity wasn't a miracle formula, it was his brutal honesty. About the ecstasies, yes, but also about the shadows, the agonies, and the very real risks of a spiritual journey begun without preparation, without fertile soil, without roots. True spiritual maturity is not about chasing grand experiences at any cost. It's about knowing the exact moment to say yes to expansion, and also the sacred moment to say not yet. Because your consciousness is already whole, your essence is deeply illuminated. Nothing essential is missing in you. What we call awakening is not about becoming something new, but about courageously and consciously removing everything that obscures who you've always been. And that process cannot be forced. It needs your understanding, your conscious yes, your voluntary surrender to each stage, even when it's slow, silent, or uncomfortable. Any path that drags you without your consent is not enlightenment. It is invasion. It is violence disguised as a miracle. And that's exactly why we need to talk about this before it's too late. Awakening is not a race. It's a sacred crossing. It's not about reaching extraordinary states, but about cultivating such a deep presence that even the ordinary becomes divine. And when you walk with awareness, each step turns into alchemy, where even pain can become wisdom and even shadow can reveal light. Remember, true spiritual power doesn't shout, doesn't force, doesn't trample. It whispers in silence. and waits to be invited. The rhythm of the soul is not dictated by urgency, but by maturity. So honor the timing of your body, your mind, your heart. The most authentic transformation doesn't come from force, but from alignment with what you are truly ready to live. Perhaps the greatest miracle is not reaching higher, but remaining whole while you expand. And you can, because the light you're seeking is already shining within you. If you've made it this far, it's because something deep inside you is calling for more, for a purer truth, a sharper awareness, and a more intimate connection with the unseen force that gives shape to the visible. And now, I want to share with you something that will expand your consciousness even further. Get ready to take the next step. I present to you the Map of the Higher Self, a powerful e-book born from my most intense and authentic experiences. It brings together practices, insights, and mental keys that will guide you on a path of clarity, presence, and inner awakening. But it doesn't stop there. When you get the book, you'll also receive free access to the Sacred Library, an exclusive digital collection of rare, forbidden works removed from our history, hidden texts that reveal what has been concealed from humanity for centuries and is now within your reach. This map is not just a book, it's a tool for transformation. If you've arrived here, it's no accident. This is a sign. You're ready to elevate your perception and take control of your own reality. Click the link in the pinned comment and dive into this journey of self-knowledge with courage, focus, and awareness. And don't stop here. I've handpicked 2 essential videos that will expand even further everything we explored today. Choose one and keep exploring the deeper layers of your being. Remember, the truth is not found in the noise of the world, but in the silent voice of awakening consciousness.